Okay, good evening. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to an advanced meditation class. We're going to begin by chanting the four thoughts that turn the mind to the teachings. Let's do this using the triplet chant together right now. Amajo Lama, constant and perfect protector, who is the centered spontaneous mind, neither getting nor keeping the desired as well as enduring the disliked, is universal. Be it causes, conditions, components, or conceptions, independence is but an illusion. Ever-changing, one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. It is extremely important to make the most of these freedoms and opportunities that we have received. Remembering this may my mind ever notice, relax, and flow. We're going to chant now a bit of the Tao Te Ching. We're going to begin with the 22nd chapter. So, that should start in the 42nd page, ironically enough. Control G, 42. All right, so we're going to use the bookend chant for this. Tao Te Ching chapter 22. If you want to become, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be born, if you want to be reborn, let yourself die. I'm trying to make it bigger so you don't strain your eyes too terribly. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. The sage, by residing in that house, sets an example for all beings. Because he doesn't display himself, people can see his light. Because he has nothing to prove, people can trust his words. Because he doesn't know who he is, people recognize themselves in him. Because he has no goal in mind, everything he does succeeds. When the ancient sages said, if you want to be, give everything up, they were using empty phrases. Only by being lived by the Tao can you truly be yourself. Tao Te Ching chapter 23. Express yourself completely, then keep quiet. Be like the forces of nature. When it blows, there is only wind. When it rains, there is only rain. When the clouds pass, the sun shines through. If you open yourself to the Tao, you are at one with the Tao, and you can embody it completely. If you open yourself to insight, you are at one with insight, and you can use it completely. That's very sweet of you, thank you. If you open yourself to loss, you are at one with loss, and you can accept it completely. That really bears further exploration. So often we try to shield ourselves from unpleasant emotions, but the only way for us to really process them is to be vulnerable to them. Let's continue. Open yourself to the Tao, then trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. Tao Te Ching Chapter 24. He who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. He who tries to shine dims his own light. He who defines himself can know who he really is. He who has power over others can't empower himself. He who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. If you want to accord with the Tao, just do your job, then let's go. Tao Te Ching Chapter 25. There was something formless and perfect before the universe was born. It is serene, empty, solitary, unchanging, infinite. Eternally present, it is the mother of the universe. For lack of a better name, I call it the Tao. It flows through all things inside and outside and returns to the origin of all things. The Tao is great, the universe is great, earth is great, man is great, these are the four great powers. Man follows the earth follows the universe follows the Tao follows only itself. Tao Te Ching Chapter 26. The heavy is the root of the light, the unmoved is the source of all movement, thus the sage travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the view, she stays serenely in herself. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? If you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. If you let restlessness move you, you lose touch with who you are. Tao Te Ching Chapter 27. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus the sage is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost. However intelligent you are, it is the great secret. Tao Te Ching Chapter 28. Know the male, yet keep to the female. Receive the world in your arms. If you receive the world, the Tao will never leave you, and you will be like a little child. Know the white, keep to the black, be a pattern for the world. If you are a pattern for the world, the Tao will be strong inside you, and there will be nothing you cannot do. Know the personal, yet keep to the impersonal. Accept the world as it is. If you accept the world, the Tao will be luminous inside you, and you will return to your primal self. The world is formed from the void, like utensils from a block of wood. The master knows the utensils, yet keeps to the block. Thus she can use all things. Tao Te Ching Chapter 29. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is secret, it can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. There's a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest. A time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. The sage sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides in the center of the circle. This is important. This is the opposite of manifesting our goals. This is the opposite of trying to bend the universe to our will. Let's continue. Tao Te Ching Chapter 30. Whoever relies on the Tao in government men does not try to force issues or defeat enemies by force of arms. For every force there is a counter force. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon oneself. The sage does this. The sage does his job, then stops. He understands that the universe is forever out of control, and that trying to dominate events goes against the current of the Tao. Because he believes in himself, he doesn't try to convince others. Because he is content with himself, he doesn't need the approval of others. Because he accepts himself, he is accepted by the whole world. Tao Te Ching Chapter 31. Weapons are the tools of violence, all decent men detest them. Weapons are the tools of fear, a decent man will avoid them. Except in the direst necessity, and if compelled will use them. Only with the utmost of restraint peace is his highest value. If the peace has been shattered, how can he be content? His enemies are not demons, but human beings like himself. He doesn't wish him personal harm, nor does he rejoice in victory. How could he rejoice in victory and delight in the slaughter of others? He enters a battle gravely with sorrow, and with great compassion, as if he were attending a funeral. Tao Te Ching Chapter 32. The Tao can't be perceived smaller than an electron. It contains uncountable galaxies. If powerful men and women could remain centered in the Tao, all things would be in harmony. The world would become a paradise, all people would be at peace, and the law would be written in their hearts. When you have names and forms, know that they are provisional. When you have institutions, know that where the functions should end. Knowing when to stop, you can avoid any danger. All things end in the Tao as rivers flow into the sea. Tao Te Ching Chapter 33. Wow, this is jumbo print. Okay. Well, I think that'll be enough for right now. So I'm just going to set this aside. and go back to the main text. There's Lao Tzu riding on an ox. Let's see. So we're going to meditate for an hour. And we're going to use many variations. But the actual meditation is going to remain the same. During the in-breath, we're going to silently and mentally recite, noticing, while we're doing our best to passively notice to the best of our ability. During the out-breath, we're going to silently and mentally recite, relaxing, while doing our best to let go and relax in harmony with the exhalation. Now, a brilliant Swede named Olaf recently asked me, what's with the constellational references? Glad you asked. There are, in this system, in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Buddha described 4 elements, which include fire, earth, water, and air. In the Tao Te Ching, we are able to recognize two extremes, one being yin, one being yang, and occasionally a happy balanced medium. So those 3 modes, which could be described as mutable, fixed, and cardinal, multiplied by 4 elements, gives us 12 permutations. So these 12 permutations were explored many, many, many centuries ago in a system that became known as the Astrological System. Now, many astrologers will try to use their science to either justify current behavior or predict future circumstances. I never found that to be empowering. But what I did find empowering was the correlation between the 12 elemental permutations and the various archetypes that come along with them. It is as if you're playing with a mahjong set of many, many tiles. And those tiles can be scooped up and put into 12 baskets. And so when we, for instance, if we look at immutable fire right here, although the elemental permutation is immutable fire, it can relate to the archetypes that we associate with the constellation of Sagittarius, or with the heavenly body we call Jupiter, or with the 9th house. In some systems, this is correlated with the secret wheel or the uterus chakra. In other systems, it's correlated with the thighs and the tush. What I find to be most important is just to consider this to be a lower cauldron permutation. Use it very sparingly. And that it has a relationship with these archetypes, the archetype of the wanderer, the archetype of the tourist, the archetype of the teacher. And when I say teacher here, I don't mean like a nursery school teacher or a high school teacher. I mean like a college professor. This also has to do with the archetype of the guide, the philosopher, the psychiatrist, the student. Very important, the benefactor, because we wish to be compassionate individuals. Also, the comedian and the free spirit. So this type of comedian would be the slow-talking comedian, as opposed to the fast-talking comedian, typified more like by a Robin Williams. So, in essence, by playing with this gesture, where we touch the left little finger to its thumb, we're not going to influence the constellation Sagittarius. We're not going to influence the planet Jupiter. We're not going to have 9 houses all of a sudden. These are just references to another system that some people find empowering, other people find disempowering, and other people find simply to be a useful hook to hang your hat on. Most important thing here is how to access the elemental permutation, how to access it, and it's the archetypes that seem to be associated with it. Now, let's take this a step further. Some people try to use this to manifest. They say things like, man, I want to be a better teacher, so I'm going to plug into mutable fire. And that's what we call traversing the path of contrivance. Remember, we've talked about contrivance being one end of the spectrum, chaos being the other end of the spectrum, and in the center is centered spontaneity. So once we choose to contrive an intellectual or an emotional experience, we've left the path of spontaneity. But how can we use these 12 elemental permutations in a manner that is in harmony with the philosophy of centered spontaneity? I'm glad you asked. There was a book written by a physician. I think he was East Indian. I may be mistaken. The book's title was Our Body's Many Cries for Water. And the idea was that water is very much like a panacea, a cure-all. We simply need to recognize our body's ways of expressing its need for water. Well, the same can be true of the 12 elemental permutations. We spend close to half of our meditation session working with the lower cauldron, close to half working with the middle cauldron, and a fraction of the final portion working with the upper cauldron. Within the lower cauldron, there are 4 choices. There's mutable fire, cardinal earth, fixed earth, and mutable earth. So as we sit in meditation, we do not ignore our body's sensations. We do not ignore our emotional sensations. We listen to them. And sometimes they're asking for us to change modalities. For instance, if we spend too long in mutable fire, we can get very cranky. As we notice that crankiness, that could be our body's way of saying, okay, you've had enough of this. And so we change modalities, not to control our experience, but to honor our body's request to better meet its needs. And this is a very subtle area, because we could use high-sounding language to justify contrivance. If we're trying to manifest, improve our career, that's contrivance. If we simply want to be able to practice the 3 treasures of the Tao, that's different. What are the 3 treasures of the Tao? They would be patience, compassion, and simplicity. So obviously, hulking out would not be patience. Becoming a red-faced, insane person, screaming, losing the temper, smashing things, would not be patient or compassionate. And it would not be an example of centered spontaneity. So if we are making minor adjustments in our finger positions just to be able to balance upon the tripod, if you will, of compassion, patience, and simplicity, then we're in keeping with the Tao. Once we push that tripod aside and say, no, I want to be a babe magnet. I want to be a money magnet. I want prestige. We've lost sight of the Tao. And so it's an overlapping Venn diagram. If we are completely passive, we won't be able to practice centered spontaneity, which is the key to traversing the Taoist path. If we ignore centered spontaneity because we're reaching forward to get all these things we think are going to make us happy, we will be drowning in our own greed. If we're reaching forward, trying to push these things we think are going to make us suffer, we will lose the center. And so we only make subtle adjustments with our hand fingers, our finger positions, to maintain patience, compassion, simplicity. What's simplicity? Centered spontaneity. Now this is not learned overnight. That's why people profit from having a relationship with a teacher who's familiar with the system and who can guide them and respond to their questions. That's why it's so important to keep a journal and write down very specific questions in relation to very specific circumstances, and then bring them to class once a week so you can get advice from your teacher. Very, very, very important. Now, remember we chanted, Amajo Lama, constant and perfect protector, who is what? The centered, spontaneous mind. The outer Lama serves to help you find the inner Lama. We find the inner Lama by cultivating centered spontaneity. That is what this path is all about. Centered spontaneity is not the absence of thoughts. It's not the presence of bliss or devotion or compassion or peace. It is an exploration, an exercise in empowered passivity, which can seem rather like a contradiction. Olaf, have you any other questions on the subject at this time?
No more questions.
Okay. So let's begin our meditation. What I'm going to do is go forward in the text. Well, let's keep this simple. Let's begin with mutable earth. And we do that by using our left ring finger. So what we're going to do right now is hold our mala, if we have a mala, with our left ring finger. If you don't have a mala, simply touch your left ring finger to its thumb gingerly. These are not hand isometrics. I like using a mala. I found it very empowering. I consider it to be kind of like a Bronze Age timer or abacus. So we're going to work with the earth elements in one form or another for approximately 30 minutes. Remember, on the in-breath, notice. We mentally and silently recite noticing. And the out-breath, we silently and mentally recite relaxing. My basic rule of thumb is if you can keep your eyes closed without falling asleep, then by all means, enjoy yourself. There will be times when you feel like opening your eyes. Listen to your body. Cultivate your intuitional leading. What I recommend is that during the first 30 minutes, we emphasize mindfulness simply by counting our mala on the out-breath. And I think that's written right here. Extend thumb and advance mala during the out-breath. So by doing nothing on the in-breath and only moving the mala on the out-breath, that helps us to be more vulnerable to the mindfulness opportunities offered by this elemental permutation. You do not want to force the breath. Your body decides how slow or quick the breath should be. If you cannot sit on the floor, if you must sit on a chair, then sit at the very edge of the chair, forming a tripod between your left leg, your right leg, and your tush. You don't want to lean back and slouch because that's a recipe for falling asleep, which should not be confused with meditation. Let us also not confuse manifestation with meditation. Manifestation is about getting rid of some things and acquiring other things. Meditation is about noticing and relaxing and accepting and flowing by a centered, spontaneous place. We've mentioned the three treasures of Lao Tzu are patience, compassion, and simplicity. When I think about patience, I think about the line from the character Qui-Gon Jinn from the first Star Wars prequel, where he states, "I counsel patience. The solution will present itself." That was one mala. Let's do a second mala. It's not a question of if, but when. Memories, confabulations, and daydreams will come up. When they come up, do not shove them away, nor indulge them, but instead, just continue with the exercise of noticing and relaxing, recognizing what they are. They're not reality, they're just a movie. Our job is not to edit them. Job is to notice and relax and wave to them metaphorically as they pass on by, which they will of their own accord. Our goal is to neither have a superficial meditation nor a deep meditation, merely a lucid one, where we passively notice and relax. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and boast about the depth of their meditation. It's a mistake to equate contemplative depth with passive lucidity. If you feel discomfort in your upper back or your neck, perhaps shrugging for a second might create some enhance your comfort. That completes our second law. Let's continue. Khyentse Rinpoche used to say that it's bad to leave your meditation mat prematurely. But he only accomplished the third bodhisattva, Bhumi. Lao Tzu, who accomplished the path completely, taught us that the most important thing was to flow with the Tao, regardless of whether that means shattering our own plans or our own to-do list. Noticing, relaxing. Okay, we have just completed our third mala. That was, we're 3 malas working with the lower cauldron, specifically working with, oopsie, mutable earth. Now we're going to turn our attention to the middle cauldron. First, we're just going to very sparingly use fixed fire by holding the mala with our right little finger while simultaneously touching our left little finger to its thumb. Let's just do this for 3 breaths. And by the way, remember this time we're going to extend the thumb and advance the mala during the in-breath, thus emphasizing the relaxing. For the remainder of this mala, please count upon your left middle finger. If you do not own a mala, simply touch your left middle finger to its thumb while giving the digits of your right hand a rest. And that is what we like to call mutable water. Now, at this moment, I'm feeling a subtle headache in my forehead, which I've come to associate with an excess of fire element. I probably used too much mutable fire earlier today. So it's nothing to lament about or repent about, just I adjust my approach and continue forward. Noticing, relaxing. By the way, if you want a copy of this PDF, just write me and I'll email it to you. It's easiest to write me through the website. Let us not commit the logical fallacy of an appeal to authority. It does not matter who agrees with us or who disagrees with us. What matters is the results generated by our actions. To put a sharper point in it, if our philosophy in our meditative practice erodes our peace, our patience, our compassion, our simplicity, then it's not working. If it builds our compassion, patience, simplicity, then it is working. Olaf, if you find yourself getting too tired, continue to count your mala on your left middle finger while simultaneously touching your right middle finger to its thumb. But only if you find yourself getting too tired. We so complete our fourth mala. Let's continue with another mala on our left little finger. Hello, sir. Hey, my friend. I have a package for you. Thank you. Have a great day. You too. Yep. If the face of a person you find annoying comes to mind, don't tell yourself a story about it. Don't beat yourself up. Just notice and relax. That completes our fifth mola. Let's continue working with our left middle finger. With about 3.5 minutes left of our hour, let's switch fingers and now count our mala with our left index finger. If you don't have a mala, just touch your left index finger to its thumb. Just as the ring finger helped us emphasize mindfulness and the middle finger emphasized the inside of letting go, the index finger will help us to emphasize spontaneity, which is crucial to moving through life as compassionately, patiently as possible. Noticing, relaxing. And quick note, let's jump ahead 4 pages. For the upper cauldron, which we're doing right now, we're going to extend the thumb during the in-breath and advance the mala during the out-breath. We're going to persist with noticing, relaxing, and if you wish, you may open your eyes. If you're sitting before a window, this is a great time to gaze upon the If it's nighttime where you are, just turn off the lights. You'll be able to see out the window just fine. Of course, by the sound of the timer, you can tell our meditation session is drawing to a close. So we've generated a great deal of very positive energy. We're now going to invest that energy in our compassion for others, and we're going to feed that compassion simply by reciting this translation of the Metta Sutta. Let's use the triplet chant. May all be skilled and peaceful as well as seek the good. May all be able and upright, straightforward, of gentle speech and not proud. Oopsie, wrong button. Sorry about that, folks. May all be content and easily supported, unburdened with their senses calmed. May all be wise, not arrogant. May all be without desire for the possessions of others. May all do nothing mean, or that the wise would reprove. May all beings be happy. May they live in safety and joy. You're noticing that this is completely the opposite of competition We're not wishing victory for ourselves. We're not wishing defeat for others. We're wishing victory for everyone. Oops, I went far. I skipped a quatrain. Let's try that again. All living beings, whether weak or strong, stout or lean, tall or short, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born, may they all be happy. May no one deceive another or despise any being in any state. May none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. As a mother watches over her only child, willing to risk her own life to protect her child, so with a boundless heart may all cherish each living being, suffusing the whole wide world with unobstructed loving kindness. May each be unattached to speculations, views, and sense desires, and have clear vision, for such a person can never be reborn in the cycle of suffering. Standing or walking, sitting or lying down during all one's waking hours, may each remain mindful of this heart and this way of living that is the best in the world. Okay, my friends, thank you for your time and your kind attention. If you would like to participate in a live class, please use the link below to register. Going to, let's see, trying to find the stop record button. That's sometimes easier said than done. Okay, bye-bye now.